The misty bayous and shadowed alleys of old Louisiana hold secrets deeper than any cypress root, while tales of Billy the Kid and Wyatt Earp echo through the saloons of the West. The Pelican State bred its own brand of outlaw, men whose lives were as murky as the Mississippi mud, and whose deaths remain riddles wrapped in humidity and silence. These aren't the gunslingers you've read about in dime novels. These are the forgotten phantoms of Louisiana's violent past, specters whose final moments are still debated in hushed tones by historians who dare to look. Today, we drag 5 of these tales from the depths, exploring the forgotten gunslingers of Louisiana and the mysterious deaths that still puzzle us all. Our first story takes us to the rowdy, gaslit streets of 1880s New Orleans, a city of sin and splendor where fortunes were won and lost on the turn of a card. Here, a man known only as Le Corbeau, the Crow, carved out a fearsome reputation. He wasn't a brawler or a common thug. Le Corbeau was a duelist, a master of the rapier and the pistol, who settled disputes for the city's elite in the shadowy dueling oaks of City Park. He was tall, always cloaked in black, with a silver-handled revolver that was said to have never missed its mark. He fought for honor, for money, for reasons known only to him, leaving a trail of wounded and dead aristocrats in his wake. His legend grew with every sunrise duel, his face always obscured by shadow or a low-brimmed hat, making him more myth than man. But the mystery of Le Corbeau lies not in his life, but in his vanishing. In the spring of 1888, after a particularly high-profile duel against a prominent sugar baron's son, he was seen collecting his fee at a Creole townhouse in the French Quarter. He tipped his hat to a witness, melted into the evening fog, and was never seen again. No body was ever found, no final duel was ever recorded. Some whispered that the baron, enraged by his son's death, hired the Sicilian mafia to make him disappear, dissolving him in a vat of acid. Others claimed a jilted lover, a powerful voodoo priestess, cursed him to walk the swamps as a restless spirit. Historians have scoured police records and personal journals from the era, but Le Corbeau's true name and his fate remain one of New Orleans' most tantalizingly unsolved enigmas. Did he simply take his winnings and retire to a life of anonymity? Or did his dark profession finally catch up to him in a way that left no trace? Next, we travel north, into the dense, unforgiving pine forests of the Neutral Strip, a lawless buffer zone between Louisiana and Spanish Texas in the early 19th century. This was the domain of Jean Loup-Garou Boudreaux, part trapper, part highwayman. Boudreaux was more of a feral force than a man. The locals, a mix of desperate settlers and outcasts, nicknamed him Loup-Garou, or werewolf, because of his reported savagery and his uncanny ability to navigate the treacherous woods at night. He wasn't a duelist like Le Corbeau. Boudreaux was a pragmatist, an ambusher who used a rusty, long-barreled flintlock rifle to prey on Spanish silver convoys and wealthy travelers foolish enough to journey through his territory. He was said to live in a hidden network of caves, his only companions the wolves he was rumored to run with. The end of Jean Boudreaux is a macabre piece of local folklore that historians struggle to verify. The official account, a footnote in a territorial governor's report, states he was cornered by a posse of regulators in the winter of 1821. They claimed to have shot him, but his body was supposedly dragged away into the thicket by a pack of unusually large wolves before they could retrieve it. But the local legend tells a different story. It says the posse found his cave, but Boudreaux was already dead, surrounded by the mauled bodies of his own wolf companions. His corpse was untouched, his flintlock rifle still clutched in his hands, but his face was frozen in an expression of sheer, unadulterated terror. What could have frightened the werewolf of the Neutral Strip to death? Some historians speculate poison, perhaps from a rival outlaw. Others point to the possibility of a rare, fast-acting disease. But the legend persists. Something far more ancient and terrifying than any man stalked those woods. And on that cold winter night, it came for Jean Boudreau. Our third gunslinger was a woman, a figure of rare power in a world dominated by men. Calico Rose Devereux operated along the Red River in the 1870s, the captain of her own small, heavily armed steamboat. She wasn't born into a life of crime. Rose was the well-educated daughter of a cotton planter who lost everything after the Civil War. Refusing to accept poverty, she acquired a boat and a loyal crew, turning to smuggling, extortion, and river piracy. With 2 Colt peacemakers strapped to her hips and a mind as sharp as any banker's, she outsmarted and outgunned competitors and lawmen alike. She earned her nickname Calico for the colorful, patched-up sails of her boat, a vessel that became a symbol of both opportunity and dread for those who plied the Red River's muddy waters. Rose's disappearance is as confounding as her rise to power. In 1879, she was in the middle of a bitter feud with a powerful timber syndicate that wanted control of her section of the river. According to her first mate's later testimony, Rose had arranged a secret meeting on a secluded sandbar to negotiate a truce. She rowed ashore alone, telling her crew to wait for her signal. The signal never came. As dawn broke, the crew found the rowboat empty. On the sandbar were signs of a discussion, cigar butts and 2 sets of footprints, but no struggle. The footprints simply stopped at the river's edge. Calico Rose, her peacemakers, and the representative from the timber syndicate had vanished. The syndicate claimed their man never returned either, and no bodies ever surfaced. Was it a double cross where both were dragged into the river's depths? Or did the formidable Rose, seeing an opportunity, fake her own death, take a hidden stash of gold, and start a new life with her rival? The Red River keeps its secrets well, and the fate of Calico Rose is one of its deepest. From the river, we move to the sugar-cane fields of St. James Parish, home to Silas the Preacher Kane. Active in the post-Reconstruction era, Kane was a paradox. By day, he was an itinerant preacher, a charismatic figure who could quote scripture with fire and brimstone intensity. By night, he was a vigilante, a ruthless enforcer who targeted the corrupt overseers and landowners who exploited the local sharecroppers. He never used a gun in a fair fight. His weapon was a sawed-off shotgun he called the Lord's Judgment, and his justice was delivered from the shadows. He would appear as if from nowhere, mete out his punishment, and vanish, leaving only a Bible verse scrawled on a nearby wall. To the oppressed, he was a righteous avenger. To the powerful, he was a terrifying phantom. The mystery surrounding Silas Kane's death is a question of identity. In 1893, a man identified as Kane was found dead in a burned-out church, seemingly the victim of a lynch mob organized by his powerful enemies. He had been shot multiple times. The case was officially closed. However, 2 weeks later, another notoriously cruel plantation owner was found executed in the exact same manner as Kane's previous victims. A Bible verse from the book of Job left at the scene. For the next decade, similar preacher killings occurred sporadically throughout the region. This has left historians with a baffling puzzle. Was the man they killed in the church an imposter, a follower who died in his place? Or was Silas Kane not a single person, but a title, a mantle passed from one righteous avenger to the next? The preacher may have died that day, but his specter of judgment haunted the cane fields for years to come, a ghost that could never truly be exorcised. Our final tale is perhaps the strangest, found in the sweltering, mosquito-infested coastal marshes near the Atchafalaya Basin. This was the hunting ground of a man known as the Gentleman Ghost. Active in the early 1900s, he was a poacher and a bandit who targeted wealthy hunters and fur traders from the north. But he was unlike any other outlaw. Witnesses described him as impeccably dressed in a white linen suit, even while poling his pirogue through the muck. He was said to be unnaturally polite, engaging his victims in philosophical conversation before robbing them blind with a small pearl-handled derringer. He never harmed anyone, and he often left his victims with enough resources to get back to civilization, along with a cryptic, handwritten apology note. The End of the Gentleman Ghost is a story that blurs the line between history and surreal nightmare. In 1911, a massive hurricane, one of the most destructive on record, scoured the Louisiana coast. In the storm's aftermath, a rescue party found a wrecked pirogue deep in the marsh. Inside, they discovered a perfectly preserved white linen suit, folded neatly, and a pearl-handled derringer resting on top. Of the gentleman ghost himself, there was no sign. But the strangest part was the note they found tucked into the suit's pocket. It wasn't an apology. It was a detailed astronomical chart, mapping a celestial alignment that wouldn't occur for another 50 years, with a single, chilling sentence written beneath, "It is time to go home." Historians have proposed that he was an eccentric astronomer who simply fled the storm, leaving his persona behind. But the folklore of the region offers a more unsettling explanation: that the gentleman ghost was never human at all, but something else entirely, a visitor merely passing through our world, whose time had simply run out. From the dueling oaks of New Orleans to the hurricane-ravaged coast, the stories of these forgotten gunslingers are etched into the very soul of Louisiana. They are tales of violence, mystery, and defiance, of figures who lived and died by their own rules. While history may have forgotten their names, their legends linger like the morning mist on the bayou, their mysterious ends serving as a stark reminder that some of the most compelling stories are the ones without a final chapter. The evidence has faded, the witnesses are long dead, and the truth, like the bodies of the outlaws themselves, may be forever lost to the murky waters of time.